Hey, you beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. I guess you can call it a podcast. And we are here today to talk about P Valley. And we are also here today to reiterate to freaking Starz to give us a skip intro. Okay? Because although we love the song, but I don't want to hear it every single time. So I'm not going to start off with a complaint, although I just did. but yeah, we need Starz to get with it. Come on, get with it. All right, so we start the episode with Miss Mercedes on the pole. She getting it. No, she not getting it, y'all. Mercedes then lost something, and of course we thinking it's because of the injury. She's still like favoring that arm. But here's something that was weird to me. Y'all realize that when she was at the coach's house with the wife and everything, and she was on the pole, she was perfectly fine, right? I mean, I'm sure the pole at the pink is a lot higher and everything, but she didn't seem to be this off. So I don't know. But Uncle Clifford comes in and he's like, "Listen, that's the first time I've seen the pole conquer you. You're supposed to conquer the pole." And he tells her he don't think the injury is really in her arm, it's in her head. And she's like, "Yeah, I think your issues with the pink ain't really in your head, it's in your hands." And I was like, "Okay, with the comeback." So she's like, "If I gotta try, then you gotta try." And that's when we get the intro song. All right, so now we're at Uncle Clifford's house, and she is cutting little Murda's hair. She's cutting Murda in the back of his head, and he's on hold. She keep asking if they come to the phone. They come to the phone. No, they ain't come to the phone yet. So they get to having a conversation about where little Murda's going. He's going nowhere, and she's like, "You are very secretive, more secretive than a Janet Jackson lyric." And I died laughing because you don't be knowing what the hell Janet talking about. It sound good though. But so they end up, like I said, going back and forth about, the fact that he don't want to be kept secret. Oh, I thought we was past that. How we past that when basically y'all just still in the house, so y'all really not past that. But they get to talking about when they was doing it, and they didn't use anything. And I hope you ain't been with nobody, and I hope you was protecting her. And I'm like, fine time for y'all to be having this conversation, right? Who was the one that said no to the I think it was Lil Murda. So Lil Murda, don't be coming at her with all that stuff now. Like, you should have thought about that when you told her no, we don't need to use the condom. We ain't trying to hear that. And he would sound like he had an attitude. Was you protected? Dude, like, you really should have thought of that long time ago. So they end up she talks to the nurse, and the nurse is really irritated because apparently she keeps calling back every 45 minutes or whatever, checking on her grandmother. And I just think it's really rude that they treating her like that, because of course you want to know what's going on with your family member. Unfortunately, with the times of COVID, it was so freaking hard that you couldn't have family members in there with you. I had an auntie that was in there with COVID, and none of the family could see her. Like, you can't go see them. So it's quite different when you can't go in and check on them yourself or whatever, and you need to know what's going on. So he gets mad, she gets mad, and she gets her keys and she's leaving. So as he's leaving, Lil Murda's like, "Where you going?" And he's like, "Somewhere," unlike that nowhere you be going. And I just want to say that I'm actually happy that we are getting this back and forth with Uncle Clifford calling the hospital, and they haven't just killed her off. Like, I'm so glad they didn't kill her. Ignorant self. That grandmama is ignorant, and I love it. So yeah, I'm hoping that they, bring her back, because we don't want to lose grandma. All right, we then see this scene with Mercedes running with her dog like she used to in season one. She runs into the guy that she used to mess around with in season one, that the one that's in and out of prison all the time. And she's like, "What you doing home?" And he tells her that the COVID was running all up and through there, so they had to get rid of them. And he was asking, "What you doing? You still on the pole or whatever?" And she's like, "Well, y'all got let out, and we kind of did too. It kind of closed us down." So he tells her that they're throwing a party for him tonight, and she should try to come by. She said she would see what she could do. So we know that means she gonna go there. She said she gonna try to move some things around. He said, "Oh, I like when you move your things around." I'm like, Lord, them and these comebacks, a mess. All right, so now we sitting at a diner with Haley, and who comes in but Miss Keyshawn. She sits down, she slides Haley birth certificates, and she's like, "Those are birth certificates." And she says, "Okay, 3 passports coming up." And we find out that this is the actual diner that her and her Keyshawn and her guy, her husband, boyfriend, husband. Did they ever get married? I don't know. But we see that that's where they had their first date. Remember when Patricia Woodbine was the waitress? And you know, and Haley's like, yeah, I bet you never thought it would come to this. No, she didn't. But we find out that she's trying to help her leave, of course. And she's like, you have any idea where you're going? And she's about to tell her. She's like, well, I was thinking about. And she's like, no, that is the first cardinal rule. Don't tell nobody where you're going. So she lets her know that she's going to help her, you know, get some money. So she wants her to come back to the Pink. And she's like, he ain't gonna never let me come back to the Pink. I ain't come back to the Pink. No, just tell him that he can have all your money from the floor. You can get everything from the door. And that way you can go. And she's like, okay. I'm like, Haley is smart as hell. Because she knows that they not ready, and she knows that Keyshawn is gonna bring in a whole lot of people. So I'm like, she always doing business both ways. So she's helping her, but she's actually helping herself as well, because then she'll have a good headliner for the opening. Listen, I ain't mad at Haley. So Keyshawn ends up, you know, leave. She tells her that she did look up Haley Colton, and you know she died, and they said she drowned or whatever. And she's like, and yet she's, you know, sitting at a diner helping you for now. And of course we know that eventually Haley's gonna move on. She's not gonna stay there forever. But yeah, it was a cute little scene. Then we see a commercial comes on. They stop, and it's a commercial slamming Andre, and the fact that he said that his mom was a crackhead or whatever. She was addicted to drugs, and he said that his dad died when he was like 5 or 6. Come to find out, no, he didn't. So they found the dad. He's on death row for murder. And so it's just like a smear campaign. So also, as she's sitting there watching the commercial, you hear the waitress and some of the other patrons talking about Andre and his family, and the fact that they just corrupt from the root. Like the whole family is just corrupt. So, and she's like, he's a nigga. And I was like, ugh, sis, don't say that. But we see now that he don't have the people on his side at this point. All right, so as the commercial is running, we also find ourselves back over at, I guess, headquarters for Andre, and Corbin is there. They're watching the commercial. Corbin is pissed off because he had no idea. Of course, Andre's like, listen, you know, it's shameful. Who wants to tell somebody that their father is on death row? And then we see another commercial come up, and it's blasting Patricia Woodbine, talking about how she was a hooker and how she was doing this and that, and they had video of her just out there. So then we see them actually interviewing her, and she's owning all her shit. She's like, oh yeah, I didn't suck so much dick, it don't even matter. Like, I used to do this, I used to do that, I had tricks and dicks, and I was just like, this lady is ridiculous. But you know what she was doing? She was owning her shit. What else can you do? Like, you can't keep coming for her if she's owning it. And that's exactly what Corbin told Andre. At least she's owning it. And listen, Andre needs to just own it and move on. But he's an idiot, so we know that ain't gonna happen. All right, and now we at Keyshawn's house where she is doing dishes, and her man comes in. What's his name? Derek. He comes in with some Louboutins, and I'm like, where he getting this money from? Like, when he fills the house up with roses and he does like all this different stuff, is this the money from her being on the road? Like, is he using her money to buy her things? I don't understand. But he's putting it on her foot. It's too small, size 7. She's like, listen, I done had 2 kids. My feet have spread. Dumbass. She didn't say that, but that's how he felt, because he's hitting himself in the head, and he just clearly has issues. Talking about he can't do anything right. And now all of a sudden he's begging her, you know, not to leave and everything. And I'm like, it's so weird. And you could do whatever you want to do. You can make videos for your OnlyFans. You can do this and that. So now we see how she's going to be able to go back to the Pink. He is in a spot where he's trying to make everything up to her. He's going to change. He's going to be different. So he's trying to get back in her good graces. So he's going to allow her to do what she wants to do. All right, so I'm actually about to skip past these 2 parts real fast, okay? Corbin goes to talk to his brother about the commercials he's putting out or whatever, and he's like, listen, you messing it up. Like, you are actually trailing Patricia Woodbine or whatever. So, like, you putting these out is doing no good. So they get into this whole pissing match about, you know, you're just mad because you were never really accepted, but our dad left you some money, you were just a bastard, this and that, you were his biggest mistake, all of that. And he tells him that, you know, if they lose the casino, then it's going to be on his head. So Corbin can't win. All right, so Haley ends up walking into a salon where the white lady is, the lady that's over everything, the lady that made the offer of $5 million. She's very happy with her offer, and she's like, listen, I know you're going to take it. It's great, right? And of course, Haley's like, nah, if it ain't 10 million, I'm not taking it. Listen, girl, because she's talking like she's back in the 50s and 60s and all that or whatever. Listen, girl, if you don't take this, then, you're going to be in trouble, because if we end up losing it or whatever, you ain't going to get no money. Like, she's just going on and on about the fact that she is taking a risk by not taking this money. And Haley's just like, listen, I know what type of risk I'm taking, and I'm willing to take that risk. I see you at the polls. So we go there. The lady light her cigar, and she sees that Haley is not playing no games. All right, so unfortunately, we get to see Big Teak again. This time, he's in the casket, though. Well, not yet. He's still laying on the table. We see that Woody then made him look good. He's like, we always try to make it look like nothing happened. And I'm like, he put them all back together. So he made him look really nice. But, he's asking what he's going to wear. So apparently, Lil Murda got some clothes for him and everything. And they're talking about the tape with Rome, and he's explaining why Rome had to go, pretty much, because Lil Murda's just like, man, you playing God here, like, he's like, well, Rome was a rapist and he needed to go, and he was gonna take somebody with him, and it wasn't gonna be you. And he's like, okay, you God now. Well, we all play God at some point, but I handled the situation. And he's like, yeah, and I heard about you on this tape, superstar. And he's like, what you talking about, tape? Yeah, Rome had a tape. And again, that's still so sketchy, the fact that he had a tape. Like, I don't understand. But anyway, so he's like, how you know he didn't send it out? And apparently they just really don't know if he sent it out to anybody. But, Lil Murda's saying how I guess at 15 he had to do what he had to do. So, maybe that's what, I mean, that don't really turn you gay though, right? So again, confusion on there. He's like, you got to do what you got to do, but you weren't 15 at this time, so okay. But so they just pretty much patch it up where he's like, why me? And Woody's like, why not you? One of us got to make it out the dirt or out the mud or whatever. And hopefully nothing happens to Woody. He's just very, very loyal to Lil Murda. And Lil Murda doesn't seem to be too happy about that. He even told him that if it comes out, he's going to handle it. And I'm just like, dang, Lil Murda, cut him some slack. Like, he was trying to help you out. Jesus. Okay, so now we at the Pink, and Uncle Clifford is talking to, what's his name? Big T or whatever? I don't know. But he's the, no, not Diamond. Y'all know I am terrible with names. Y'all know I am. I think it's Big T. And that, they making fun of the fact that Diamond is up there with Big Bone and he all smiling or whatever. And, Big T is like, how we supposed to make some Skrilla if we can only open at 50%, capacity? And he's like, don't worry about that, because we got our girl back, talking about Mercedes. And he's like, yeah, she gonna bring them in. They gonna be happy when they see your new routine. And Haley's like, oh, speaking of new routine, let's see that shit. And, Mercedes is pissed off, like, she ain't my boss, but yes, ma'am, she is. So I'm gonna need you to get up. Get on up, sis, and show her the routine. So she tells Big Bone to turn on some music. Mercedes is trying, and she's trying, and she's like the little engine that could, and she's like trying, and she's going, but she can't. Like, she was so clunky, and she was just so, like, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible, to where you had Whisper and Roulette looking, and they like, ooh, like, what's happening here? And yeah, it was awful. So then we have Uncle Clifford's like, turn it off, turn it off. Of course, Haley's like, she's not ready, but I got somebody who can open. And Mercedes like, oh, no, Roulette and them, they can't open. And she's like, no, not them. And who comes out but Miss Mississippi? And Roulette and Whisper are like mesmerized. Like, they are fanning out over her. Oh my God, it's her. She's so beautiful. So, yeah. And of course, Uncle Clifford ain't happy. Mercedes fell away. She ain't really say nothing, but she fell away. And then all you hear is Uncle Clifford and Uncle Clifford and Haley like going at it. Oh, wait a minute. I can't forget to say how Diamond was looking when Keyshawn came walking through the door. He turned around with his mouth open. He's like mesmerized, the same way Whisper and Roulette was mesmerized. His girl is looking at him. He's looking at Keyshawn. And Roulette tells Whisper, bitch, this about to get good. And I'm like, ooh, yes, we about to shake some shit up. Let's shake it up. So the ladies in the dressing room, and they're going on and on, whispering Roulette about how much they love Keyshawn, and we wear your lashes, and we want to be just like you when we grow up. I'm like, dang, how old are these girls? And well, I guess it's not weird that it's nobody else in there because the club ain't open yet, so they just practicing. But she's asking them, do Haley and Uncle Clifford fight like this all the time? And they like, yeah. So then they pull out some cocaine and ask if she want a bump. She's like, oh, no, 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 no. And they're like, well, suit yourself. They both, on the drugs, which is never a good thing. And then we see Mercedes comes in, and Keyshawn is like, she's speaking to her, whatever. She's like, hey, hey. And she's like, do I still have my locker? And she's like, bitch, you got a lot of nerve asking something like that. Yeah, though. And she's like, and ain't nobody at your vanity either. So they sit down, they talk about how they, never thought they would be back here. And they both like, yeah. She's like, well, when you ain't have no, nowhere else to go. And Keyshawn shakes her head, yeah, it's pretty much where she is at this point. And, Mercedes like, well, ain't no place like home. And I'm like, well, listen, let's just make it happen, girls. Let's make that money. All right, so then we see Uncle Clifford and Haley still arguing. He taking his shit. He's like, listen, let me get my shit out this office because I don't know what you gonna do, what you gonna sell next, like what you got going on. He's like, I would take the jukebox if it would fit in my Birkin. And he sits in the car. He's trying to call and check on his grandma once again. And he's getting nowhere, which again, super shitty. I cannot stand the fact that they're not telling him anything. But earlier, the lady said no news is good news, so we're gonna keep our fingers crossed. We're gonna keep praying for Miss Ernestine. But then he sees his mom in the back, and she's like, "Who I gotta beat up now?" So Clifford is, starting to cry, and she's kind of letting him know in her own little way. They have all these little sayings or whatever. Go ahead, let the water flow, and wash over you, and all of that. Basically, letting him know it's okay to cry. And she's just like, but don't forget, in the end, you got to get some get back, basically. And I'm just like, damn, grandmama is ignorant, mama ignorant. Like, everybody is just rude as heck. I don't want to call them ignorant, but I mean, they just like, how many times did the grandma tell him to kill Haley? You gotta kill her. You gotta kill her. All right, we are now at Big Teek's funeral, and now he's in the casket, still looking good. We see all the guys coming up here. They playing the Ghetto Boys. Never seen a man cry till I seen that man die. And they're all taking off their chains and putting it across his belly, and I guess he's gonna be buried with it. That's the dumbest shit ever. Like, it's just so dumb. But of course, Lil Murda is very emotional and everything. So he tells him something. I couldn't hear what he whispered to him or whatever, but it was very, very sweet. But he's crying, and I'm like, oh, the acting, chef's kiss, perfection. Like, he really brings it. And yeah, it was a very sad moment because we're gonna miss Big Teak. But he looked cute though. Oh no, that was inappropriate to say. So listen, they got him a nice red casket and everything. The fellas came through, and as they put him in the hearse or whatever, the guys are back, in the back, and they're looking at a video, and they like, hey, asking Lil Murda, have you seen this yet? And I'm like, oh shit, it's about to be Lil Murda and him doing it. But no, it wasn't. It was this guy. I guess his name is Pico. He's the one that knows about Lil Murda. He's the one that said some stuff. And was it season 1 or earlier in this season? I think it was season 1. But yeah, he's claiming the fact that he killed Big Teak, and it ain't true. But he's claiming it. The guys are mad, and they like, listen, he gotta go. Lil Murda's like, yeah, he gotta go. I'm like, no, Lil Murda, you are not a murderer, Lil Homicide. But I mean, I guess he is, right? Y'all, so we back at the Pink, and the girls are still practicing, and oh my god, Roulette and Whisper clowning the shit out of Mercedes, and it's so bad. They got her looking so bad. She's practicing, she's trying. They like, guess that's what happens when you doing it past your prime. And they talking about how pretty Miss Mercedes is, not Mercedes, Miss Mississippi is. She got to be the prettiest person I've ever seen or whatever. So then Roulette is telling Whisper that the guy still wants her. And she's like, nah, I don't feel like that's something I want to do. Girl, you better make this money. You better get this money. It's easy money. Yo, so Mercedes is still falling. Like, she is steady falling, and they are steady clowning her. Whisper says it's like watching my grandma try to set up her Wi-Fi. They are clowning the entire shit out of her, and they really making her look real bad, like real bad. All right, so as this happening, and Mercedes and Autumn start getting into it or whatever, and then we hear her phone ring, and it's Terica. So she tells her, "I'm on my way." So she ends up going, and apparently Michelle then made it over to her house drunk, and she's upset because she found out that she got an abortion. I'm like, Terica, your big ass mouth. What you have to tell her for? Like, why'd you have to tell her? Seriously. And she's pissed off. She's like, I know y'all used to giving away babies, this and that. So she's being real ignorant. And I was happy when Mercedes was like, listen, I will knock you out. I was like, do it, do it. I really wanted her to hit her. I think at some point she gonna have to punch her. Just punch her dead in her fucking face. But, it's so funny because Terica was like, Ma, and they both was like, huh? And she's like, she ain't calling you mama. You do one little thing for her, and now you feel like, you the mom. I'm her mom. No, you're not her mom. You some drunk that's just been driving around and driving her around, and it's dangerous. So she's like, I'm gonna call you an Uber back home. Terica's like, no, I'm gonna drive her home. I know how to drive thanks to you. And I'm like, so we letting 14-year-olds just drive now? Like, that's what we doing? We just letting her drive at 14 years old. Seriously? Okay. All right, so then we have Uncle Clifford going to see Corbin, and y'all, they jam packed this episode with a lot, like all these different scene changes. I didn't realize it was so much, but they put a lot up in here. So he goes to see Corbin, and I'm like, Corbin, what you doing? He working on some kind of irrigation system or whatever, and Uncle Clifford is trying to tell him that he will be on his team for right now. And, they going back and forth about how they grew up. And I guess the brother was saying how, he used to terrorize, or the two brothers used to terrorize Corbin. And now Uncle Clifford is saying how Corbin used to terrorize him when they were little. Like, you used to take my Barbie dolls and pop their heads off just for no good reason. And, so they all grew up together. So apparently they're going to try to work together, I guess, to get Patricia out and work on, I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do together, but they both mad at Haley. So Uncle Clifford is all in his feelings. So he going to be friends with whoever's mad at Haley. All right. Now we at the hotel with Roulette and Whisper, and they're waiting on Terrence to come. And Whisper is like, I don't know if it's a good idea. My third eye is telling me that, I shouldn't do this. And of course, Roulette is like, girl, we gonna do it. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. So he ends up coming, and she's like, hey, Roulette. And he don't even speak to her. He just looking at Whisper like, ooh. And I'm like, ignorant ass. And, he's like, what are you doing here? This and that. And she's like, listen, I'm not leaving. So I'm just trying to make sure everything is fine. So if you ain't trying to have me here, then you leaving. So, of course, he's like, fine, I'll do it. So we have them, and thankfully she ends up going into the bathroom while they doing it. And all he wanted to do was do her. He wasn't trying to do it with her. He just wanted to do her. That's the nicest way I can put it. He just wanted to do her and pay her for it or whatever. And I was like, let me shut up. Let me shut up. But anyway, because tell me that's not a good deal. That's a good deal. So they're in there, they're doing their thing. She's, doing this little moan or whatever. And Roulette is in the bathroom playing, I think, Candy Crush or something, she said. So when it's all said and done, this fool throws the money on the floor. And I'm like, what an asshole. But of course he is. I mean, look at what he's paying for. So it's $200 short. So she's like, this ain't what we came up with, this and that or whatever. Okay, so same time, or I don't know if it's the same time, but we then go over to Andre's house. He's watching the commercial again. He's looking at a check from Lakeisha Savage for $10,000, and apparently that's what Haley gave him after they did it. She put the check on the table. I was just like, ooh, okay. But he said he ain't cashed it, so she comes over with some moonshine. Y'all, just not interested. Like, she wants him to, of course, go for it, be the mayor, do your thing. I'm just not interested in their whole love story. I'm just not. Like, I don't care. All right, so back at the hotel, Terrence is saying that he shorted her because, listen, she ain't really do nothing. I did all the work, and I'm like, dude, that's what you wanted to do. You the one that was your offer, and that's exactly what Roulette told him. That's what we agreed on. She ain't say agreed, she said agreed. That's what we agreed on. And he's like, she can't even moan right. And she's like, whisper. It's like, you better be glad I did any moaning at all. She's like, I felt it when you first walked in, the aura of a man who has never pleased a woman. And he grabs her by the neck and he's going, and I'm like, oh my God, Roulette, what are you going to do? Like, that's what you're here for. Other than that, fuck is you here for? And okay, right in the nick of time, she comes, she puts the gun to his head and tells him to back up. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm talking about. Bring it. Because that is what you're here for. Other than that, no reason. But anyway, she puts the gun to his head and everything, and he's like, damn, all right, I let her go. So she's, telling, did she tell him to give him the rest of the money? I don't even think she did. Like, she's like, undress him, and what's her name? Whisper is like, what do you mean? She's like, bitch, I said undress him. And I'm like, Roulette is a little crazy. So she undresses him or whatever. She tells him to get on his knees, and he's not believing. I mean, he's doing it, but and then Whisper's like, get on your fucking knees. She said, get on your knees. And I'm like, now Whisper's bad. Like, she believes it, because Roulette takes the gun and she puts it to her head, and she pulls the trigger. And Whisper's like, Roulette. And I'm like, this broad is crazy. She puts it to his head. She pulls the trigger. Nothing, nothing happens or whatever. But she's like, I will keep pulling the trigger. So she ends up getting him on his knees. She puts the open your mouth. She puts the gun in his mouth. She's moving it in and out, because remember, she did him, and she's like, who got dick sucking lips now? And all we see next is them running, and they taking his car. So she takes it to the chop shop or whatever, and that's where the white guy is. I can't remember his name, but it was the what was it, Miss Nashville's ex-boyfriend or something like that. But yeah, she takes it to him, and she's like, ain't nobody finna come looking for this car. I highly doubt that he is going to tell anybody how his car got taken away. Yeah, Miss Roulette, she look crazy unless what, no bullets in the gun. That's what I kept thinking the whole time. Okay, maybe ain't no bullets really in that gun. All right, then we have Little Murder. Well, not Little Murder. We see the guy Pico coming out the gas station or whatever, saying hey to everybody, and then he ends up in this little alleyway, and it's totally dark, and we see Little Murder. Little Murder come out. He's like, hey, what up, baby boy? And he's like, Murder, listen, I don't want no problems. Murder's like, oh, because it seemed like that's exactly what you was asking for. No, I was just trying to claim the body because my boy's been clowning me ever since he beat my ass or whatever. So he's like, yeah, you can't play God. You can't claim a body without, claiming the weight. So the guy, very humble. Oh my God, you know my mom. You know everyone. I got a 6-year-old, and he's like, Tyshawn, or Tyrese, somebody called him. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I tell him you love him. And he just lit him up. I mean, he lit him up. So later on, we find out, and I'm going to go past this because it just made I won't say make no sense, but I guess we just wrapped up the whole thing with Mercedes and the big guy. So apparently he is Pico's friend. They're in the same game, because she goes to the party that they were giving him. And then as they're there talking, they were like, oh, somebody shot up Pico, so the whole gang got to go. She told him, listen, you just got out. What's his name, Maine or something like that? You just got out. You don't need to go. So she stayed back. She's talking to him, and he's trying her, and of course he just want to sleep with her. And she's like, that ain't what I'm looking for. And he's like, oh, well, hope you find what you're looking for. Peace. And I was just like, dang. But fine, we wrap him up. We know he ain't about shit. He ain't talking about nothing. So we don't have to see him anymore. All right, and in a couple other scenes, we have Clifford going to see his mom. He went to her grave. He's like, I could have sworn I saw you. But he's crying to her about everything that's going on. And then we have Patricia Woodbine. She's at church. She's doing, and I was like, ain't nobody in her church. But I forgot that she was doing it. It's a digital thing because of the whole COVID. So she's taking donations and everything, and she got like a $10, $100, and then she got a $10,000. And the message with it came from somebody, Bunny or something like that, Rabbit, something like that. And she's like, Well, it didn't come without a message. It came with a message. It said, "Catch me outside." So Corbin comes. Well, she comes, and it ends up being Corbin. And he's trying to get her basically to stop. He gives her all this money. I'm assuming it's the 10,000 in cash, and he tells her there's a lot more where that came from. And she's like, "Listen, I was actually doing this, to be petty pretty much at first." And she's like, "But now I feel like that's where I really need to be." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And like Clifford told him, all she cares about is money. That's all she cares about, because she was really, looking at that money and like, So yeah, I think they're going to be able to get her to drop out, because she ain't about nothing. Y'all, we pretty much end the episode with Roulette walking out the little chop shop or whatever, and she opens the gun, and we see, oh my God, there was one bullet in there. Like, she is crazy for real. Like, that was not pretend. That was not where there's no gun, no bullets in there. There was bullets. Well, one bullet, and she crazy for real. So I was actually glad they showed that part, because I really was one of the people that was just like, maybe it was empty. Maybe she ain't that crazy. No, she's crazy. And then we see, uh, what's his name? Lil Murda, and he's in the studio, and he's about to record, but he got blood on his hands, and we just see that he just got an evil eye, and we zoom in on him, and that's how it goes off, where Lil Murda is just all upset. Like, he is on a different level right now. So hopefully he can come back around and, be the nice, sweet Murda that we love. But pretty good episode, you guys. I liked it. I was entertained. Like I said, it was jam-packed. They had a whole lot of scene changes and a whole lot of stuff happening, but I wasn't mad at it. So tell me what you guys thought of the episode, and you can correct me anywhere I was wrong, because I'm sure I was wrong. Some names, something like, I'm sure. What did anybody know what Lil Murda said when he was saying something to him in the casket, to Big T? Like, what did he say? I don't know. But all right, if you are still here, you are the real MVP. I appreciate you. If you have not already, please like the video. It actually helps out the analytics. Comment and subscribe if you have not. We would love to have you. I would love for you to consider subscribing. All right, thank you guys. Smooches. I'll see you in the next video, which will be, of course, Real Housewives of Atlanta and Married to Medicine. Smooches.